Language is a barrier. Once it's not understood, or there is a communication barrier, development is impeded. And of course, it is a challenge. And we now here are ready to take up this challenge. Brother Lamin, what do you have to say about that?
I'm looking at the policy implications of national languages in the Gambia's education system. Now, I know there have been previous speakers who have mentioned the issue of national languages, how many there are. But according to research, actually, we have up to around 18 languages or varieties of languages. Let's take note of that. Because you know that each of these national languages that we have different varieties, especially like my Kalpulars. They have so many dialects. So looking at national language planning and policy, which is referred to as LPP, we would see, according to Cooper, that this is deliberate. It is a state or institutional sense on effort to influence the behavior of others with respect to the acquisition, the structure or functional allocation of language. Now, language planning, it refers to conscious and deliberate language change. It is also proactive and necessarily feature-oriented, and is often directed towards clearly articulated social, national, and political goals. The types of language planning that we have are basically four, but we'll be making emphasis on two. The four are, we have what is called status planning, corpus planning, language and education planning, and also prestige planning. Now, status planning is an effort undertaken to change the role and function of a language or language variety within a given society or within a given society, whereas corpus planning is more concerned with internal structures of the language. In this case, it is in standardization, where you devise a writing system, initiate spelling reforms, coin new terms, and also publish grammar books. In status planning, decisions determine which language are to be used in various public functions, such as official, provincial, language of wider communication, international, educational, literary, religious, media, mass media, and workplace. Now, what are the aims of education in the Gambia? Because I think this is very important for us to look at. We will try to juxtapose this as to why the reason for national languages is pertinent. Broadly speaking, we have the following that is to promote a broad-based education at the basic level for lifelong learning and training, to develop physical and mental skills which will contribute to nation building economically, socially, and culturally in a sustainable environment, to encourage creativity and the development of a critical analytical mind, and also further an understanding and appreciation of the contribution of science and technology to innovation. But it also is that we can cultivate sound moral and ethical values in the development of life skills, foster an appreciation of and respect for the cultural heritage of the Gambia, and promote a sense of patriotism, service, loyalty, integrity, and dedication to the nation and humanity. I think knowing this will help us understand why it is necessary that people should learn in their national languages. Now, in the policy that we have, that is the 2016-2030 education policy, there has only been a mention of national languages, only one, where it mentioned that national language pilot program will be expanded to form the basis of a smooth transition from the home to the school to enhance performance and the appreciation of indigenous languages and knowledge, as well as improve reading skills. So that means that our use of the national languages has a secondary purpose. It is only meant to improve what? Reading skills, okay? And also for people to be able to perform and appreciate their national languages and knowledge. Now, where are the polemics? As far as the policy might be concerned, if we want to bring in a policy on national languages and we say that we are going to use our national languages for educational purpose, so that students will have to read and write in their own languages and access knowledge, using their own languages. It poses a lot of challenges. The dynamics can be positive, it can also be negative. First, there is some debate among researchers about which language should be used as the vehicular language in classrooms. Now, you want to talk about the Gambia. You know that there has been no particular region where you have a homogeneity of settlers. It's either Wolof Serer mixed together and Polar, or it is Mandinka, Jola, and Sarahula mixed together. So you have all these regional things. And within a classroom, you might have children coming from all these different backgrounds. So what can the teacher use as a language of medium of instruction? This is going to pose a challenge. Some researchers believe that the current role of English in Gambian school has a negative impact on students' learning achievements. And therefore, they believe that to assure that students learn and acquire the syllabus content, the vehicular language for teaching should be vernacular languages. Another one is that other researchers believe that the colonial language should be the only language used in school settings. This is another dimension that people tend to bring up with. Others justify the choice they put on the table, argues that, such as the economical development of the country, the possibility of providing students with a powerful tool of communication, and to preserve political unity. Now, what are the policy implications? We all know the Gambia is a multilingual society, and there is a complication as to which language to choose over which, without breaking the constitution of the Gambia, because the constitution of the Gambia, guarantees freedom of association, freedom of access to information, and freedom of even expression. So you can express yourself in whatever language you like. So if you want to force a student to learn in a language that he might not have a background in, are you really guaranteeing the right of that particular student? It is also not just a complicated task to choose among the 18 varieties spoken in the country, but to train and prepare teachers to teach in those languages. This is another thing. It is going to be a mammoth task. We know currently that we face challenges of teacher training, even as we are using only one language like the English language. How about if we are going to train teachers, that will be using a variety of national languages in our classrooms? Do we have the manpower to train people for Sarahule, to train people for Maninka, to train people, for teaching Wolof, Jola, Serer, and Manjago? This is going to pose a challenge.
Let's have just a short session, question session short, because we've almost run out of time. A short question and answer session. Thereafter, we have to close in remarks because people may be doing one or two things. Yes. Yes. Any question from any direction? People watching, people who are out there following it up, question and answer, possibly quickly, so that we can. Dr. Kiba S. Bujang, you are very right. Preservation of minority languages is a fundamental issue that everybody's hands should be on deck. However, there is very little effort coming from, of course, let me say, the political willingness may not be there, but this research institution, if I would call it, can take up the trouble. If of course it's going to be a daunting challenge, but we can start from somewhere to see how best. Like my brother has mentioned, Aku Marabu is becoming extinct. I met somebody else when I was on research. This person was speaking a particular language. The person said the language is called Konyaji, and it was spoken in the Gambia. I begin to wonder what happened to that language now. So it's like I was trying to find out the speakers of this language, but they're nowhere to. Only one man, and of course he's late. I met him in proof, but he's late.
Well.
Kujabi, yes. Kujabi, yes, there was a language, the Konyajis, Maswankas, Bainunkas, right? But as I said, this is why sometimes we are mistaken to maybe say, okay, Kujabi is a Jola, just because your surname is Kujabi. But based on maybe because of settlement, your people actually might have moved from being a particular ethnic group, let's say Bainunka, ending up becoming Jolas. I hope I'm communicating.
Vicente,
Yes, Lamin.
Vicente, you use the past tense. You are saying worse. Those languages, they still exist.
Oh, they still like, yeah, okay.
The speakers are actually in a very few. They are in a minority, and
or they've been assimilated by the Jolas and other ethnic groups.
Just like Doctor said, they are about to be extinct because of the number of speakers, being very, very few. It's just like how Karoninka is also an endangered language. There is what is referred to as cultural dominance in terms of the major languages, trying to absorb minority languages in terms of our settlement patterns. You come to the urban center, for example, it is a given, to know that predominantly Wolof is spoken in urban Gambia. So you would think that it is a wider language, the language of wider communication, but also with Mandinka. So the minority ethnic groups, tend to kind of get themselves immersed, with the wider languages of communication, to the extent that sometimes their offsprings, will adopt those languages, and you will see that you get fewer and fewer people speaking those minority languages. For example, let me say in my family, I'm a third generation non-speaker of Karonika. For example, I was supposed to have been speaking it, but you are right also when you said mother tongue, because a lot of people, tend to follow their mother's language. They tend to, adopt that, because of the nearness, to between the child and the mom. So we tend to be speaking our mother's language instead of the paternalistic way. So it's unfortunate that these things are happening, but the status of every minority language, needed to be looked into, and government has to have the political will, to make a statement on the status of national languages, because if not, we would just be, moving on like that without having any direction, as to how we have to handle our national languages. It is really important they make a bold statement and come out with a language policy, or come up, even if not a language policy, in terms of the national level government per se, but at the level of the education policy, it is important that this is formulated. Thank you.
Well, if students are allowed to express themselves in the indigenous languages, I'm pretty much sure that certain concepts will be easily understood, like certain math concepts.
Well, if I can just pop in there, I want to also
yes, go ahead, Doctor.
saying that it is impressive the level of efforts that have been made really in this country to see that the indigenous languages are get themselves into the schools. I didn't touch that part of it because it wasn't part of my area to touch, but I think it is good to hint that the national languages have been developed since the colonial times. They were. And then, after independence, several people were also drove the idea of having it written in the, having what we call textbooks in the languages and then have them inside the schools. Up to the 1970s, you have the likes of Batrawale, the late, Bakari Sidibe, the late. You have our dear Honorable Sidi Ajata and Matar Balde. You did mention a name too. Someone did mention a name. So these people really, yes, Siam Kinte, exactly. They did develop the non-formal education sector. They were part of the national curriculum unit under that sector, and they developed textbooks. Really, they did. I have got copies of those textbooks. I saw them with Bakari Sidibe before his demise, and I'm sure it's part of his archives there at home in Talinding. And what I'm just trying to say is this was unfortunately just flushed into the gutter and never implemented. All the policies have always given prominence in having the national language as part of our system. It was never implemented. So we are really late. You go to Senegal, they are now using the language. They're speaking on TVs where they speak a language without any probably hint of French or any other interference. But here we are doing it in our televisions, but I'm sorry to say, the people who are doing it are probably not well trained in that area. They are not trained to read and write any language. They are probably just translating this on their own and then in the.
Yeah, Doctor, you are right. In terms of the historical aspect, actually, when you look at the use of the national languages, the first time that it was brought up in education circles, it was in 1954. That is the first time. And the first time that they tried to also use the national languages in the education system was the 1976 and 86 education policy. That's where they adopted what they referred to as the national languages. And this were Pular, Mandinka, and Wolof, you know, yeah. And I think now they have expanded the number a little, you know, to incorporate Jola, you know, Sarahule. I'm not sure about Serer, but I think it's also in the
Sarahule, Serer, and Manjago.
Yeah.
Jora, Sarahule, Serer, and Manjago are all. Because if you go to the curriculum unit, they have a special, they call it national language pool. They have a special pool. They have individuals who are working on it, because I've been working with them because efforts have been made to introduce these national languages at the university. And of course, the teaching is, they will be taught and they will have to be introduced as GER, General Education Requirement, meaning that everybody who passed through the university must have to learn these languages, not just only pick one and they learn it. You have to learn all the languages. Like we're doing with French, we're doing with use of English. Of course, efforts have been made, but there are a lot of stumbling blocks along the line. If at some point I have to take some leave from teaching just to work on that, after taking 1 year leave from teaching to work on that, till now, there is no way we can introduce, I don't know where, after submitting everything to management.
Sorry, Mr. Kujabi?
Yes.
Now, instead of having it just as a general requirement, I would suggest just institute a language, institute within the university. That is the best thing, so that people can have certificates, diplomas, advanced diplomas, and degrees in these indigenous languages.
Yeah,
That's
this is a starting point. This is a starting point for us. We want to introduce, and the efforts are to have what we call a linguistic department. As it is now, it is right now. We do not have a linguistic department in the university.
I agree. The linguistic
department. Efforts are being made to make sure that those languages now will be studied up to that level, as it is in Nigeria, as it is in Ghana, and other universities too. But here, of course, the human resource, the capital resource, and other resources is the biggest challenge. However, this is starting point, and I am sure, if not us, the children coming will get there.
Well, that's our desire. That's why we're organizing such webinar. We all know that the Peace Corps volunteers come to the Gambia, and the first thing they do is to ensure that they are introduced to the Gambian culture and languages. And when they get to be within our people, they even actually change their names and start to speak the languages of those people there. Go to some part of the world, you will be surprised that they are maybe reading and writing in Jola, in Mandinka, in Pular, and so on and so forth. If we do not start it here, we may end up having people who came to the Gambia, learned our languages, went out to study it, to come back and start teaching us.
Yes, I think we can. Now we've said a lot, and this is, like I said, Madam Chair, Flora Richard Jamme, can you say something before we invite somebody, let's say Mr. Momodu Ture, to give the closing remarks?
Thank you, Kujabi. Like I've been like in the background, but a very keen listener, and I would very well say that I myself have learned a lot. And I get a little worried when I realize I personally fall in this minority group we talk about. My language, Ako, Creole, let's say Ako in Gambia. Now, I realize we face danger of extinction. like Professor Barry has said. And all the more that we should pay close attention to all the insights given in this forum. And I agree also with Ami when she explained from a legal point of view that English has been inhibiting our ability as Gambians to really understand our law, the constitution, which is the paramount. I mean, people like me for a very long time, there's so much I couldn't understand without really reading properly. Some have the opportunity because they've been well schooled, I would say school, because of the background and the support available to them during our school days, as I would say from elementary. But the vast majority of us still have a problem really understanding phrases. When people speak, we don't comprehend. We all end up, most of us, we see it online in social media when people talk about issues, and when the commentaries come up, then you realize a lot of us don't really know what that script was all about. We end up being so not giving justified reactions. This is all due to our lack of understanding. I speak today English, but sometimes, at some point, unknowingly, I speak one of the local languages, So I believe I have learned a lot. And this is also important for us as parents, not also teachers, but parents to pay attention to the fact that, like my colleague Vicente has rightfully noted, language is our cultural identity. The child learns from the mother as the first teacher. We mothers too have a great role to play, I believe, to really speak our languages to our children. In other parts of the world, in Europe, right now, the space where I find myself, I'm encouraged to speak to my children our local language at home. While in school, another language is used as the medium of instruction, but they ask all citizens, speak your mother tongue. They call it the home language to your children at home. So this is the little I would like to share. Thank you.
That's interesting. It's interesting. We can go on and on and on and on because we are all experts in this area. We all have that understanding, knowledge to contribute to see a lot of things that will be beneficial to society, beneficial to whoever that is listening, or whoever that have the opportunity to watch it later. But time has really not permitted us to keep going and going and going. And as a result, if Mr. Momodu Ture is there to listen to us, can you give some closing remarks if he's there to listen to us? If Mr. Momoture is not there, Mr. Vicente, can you give the closing remarks? I give you this honor to give the closing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kujabi, for that honor. I'm passing it to my wife, my sister, Mrs. Jalo. The husband is my elder. And he says we either participate or perish, develop or decay. So we are talking about languages. We don't want any of our languages to decay, but to develop. And we don't want any one of them definitely to be extinct in the next 5 years. So, Ami, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Vicente. It's really an honor. Yes, I'm privileged to be with a lot of people who were my classmates. Flora was my classmate, Vicente was, Moduture was, and Lamin Judge also was. Mr. Baritu, we spent some time. He was our senior at the St. Mary's University. That's where I started, then eventually moved to University of the Gambia. Actually, it's been a pleasure. And then what's happening today is like I have seen that there are many ways that we can contribute to this country, make sure we attain sustainable development. Because the language is your primary social tool. That is what you use to be socialized. So we need the language for a lot of things. For instance, in the Gambia, for you to take political office, you need to understand English. And it shouldn't be like that. You don't have to, English doesn't make you smart. It only helps you to communicate. So if you speak Jola and you are smart, you should be our leader. If you speak Manjago, you can do the job. You should be able to seek political office. So I think we have a lot of work to do. And I thank each and every one of you for coming here. And then we all share what we know. I think from here, we have to take it further, take further commitment to make sure that we do not only save our language, for us to make sure that each and every Gambian, all and sundry, we are all able to participate in the political, commercial, economic space, and also we make sure our national languages take precedence in our educational system for greater development. Because we speak English, but English is not our language. So that means our laws, our policies are not couched in a way that is reflective of our culture and the settings of our environment. So I think we have a lot of work to do. We have to start it honest. And I thank you all. And it's been a pleasure that I have to be part of this historic thing. I thank you very much. Vicente, my brother, Lamin, Mr. Kujabi, my
Thank you
darling
very
Raki. Thank you all. All
our
right.
legal luminary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jallo.
Thank you.
Yes, to you all. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Fakeba, for a
You too,
wonderful job.
Takeva. And we
Flora,
do this again.